Go buy tea for everyone. It took place at the anniversary celebration of a well-known food company. Emily, the daughter of the firm president, told me this as she threw a $1 coin at me. Releasing the coin to Emily, I did it in silence. I was overcome with melancholy. Why did I have to endure such hateful treatment? When the party staff saw what was happening, they grew pale and started whispering to each other. What's everyone fussing about? Emily's father, the head of the company, came up to me at that point and said something unexpected. I'm Jack, and I'm 42 years old. Normally I work at a small plant on a rural island that processes seaweed, but my family and I recently moved back into the city. My wife missed the broad sky of the island, and my 2 sons said that they liked the island better than the metropolis. We returned to the city because we were invited to a well-known food company's anniversary celebration tomorrow. We were invited to come by my mentor, Kevin, the company's executive, so we made our first return in years. Kevin requested to see me today before the celebration, so I went to the corporate office by myself. One of the most recognizable structures in the city, a skyscraper, served as the company's headquarters. A car sped into the entrance and halted as I was admiring the impressive edifice from below. A long-haired woman in a gaudy suit and black shades emerged from the bright red sports automobile. A couple of staff members hastily emerged from the doorway to welcome her. You've arrived late. Before the automobile got here, you ought to have been here to unlock the door. The 2 workers hung their heads and listened in silence while she complained. We're sorry, they said. Are you aware of who I am? You realize that you are readily replaceable. I couldn't help but feel bad for the workers when I saw this incident, so I ended up talking to the woman. Excuse me. I turned to face the 3 of them, startled by my abrupt arrival. She gave me a stern look and said, What is it? Her furious attitude intimidated me for a moment, but I worked up the nerve to say, Excuse me, but I'd like to see Kevin. You say the executive, Kevin. Are you scheduled to see someone? True enough, I'm Jack. Our scheduled meeting time for today is 1:00 p.m. The woman became even more agitated and yelled to me, Why don't you ask at the reception? Does Kevin even work here, by the way? Miss Emily, Kevin is President Harrison's right-hand man. The staff hesitantly said as they exchanged eyes. You're familiar with him. The woman heard this and her voice rose in rage, her cheeks flushed scarlet. I've never met him. Now move quickly. We're heading inside. I only came back because my father insisted. She then raced into the building, dragging the staff members behind her. Even though she was just called Emily, is it possible that this woman is the daughter of Mr. Harrison, the company's president? One of the earlier employees came back to me after they departed, right as I was ready to go to the reception. I regret what happened previously. I've reached out to Kevin. Kindly ride the elevator to the 37th floor. Thank you for going out of your way. The staff member bowed to me and dashed back inside. Kevin. It has been a long time. Nice to see you once more. Thank you for coming today. It brought me great joy to see Kevin again after all these years. We met at your wedding, is that correct? What state is your family in? Yes, my boys are maturing quickly. My youngest is currently 4 years old, and my oldest just began first grade. Every day, my wife and her friends on the island are busy trying out new recipes made using regional products. Well, I can't wait to meet them tomorrow. During my brief training assignment at a different organization, Kevin served as my mentor. He was gracious enough to mentor me throughout my first few days of work as a department manager at the time. I once made a big error that cost the company money, yet Kevin never put the responsibility on me. Rather, he went with me to apologize to the client and the business. While driving back from the client's office, I sobbed and apologized to Kevin. I've never forgotten what he said to me at the time. People who never fail never grow. I still find comfort in those remarks now. Kevin, just get rid of the nonsense. Please just be with me as you used to. Well, if you insist. Please, I haven't changed at all. Kevin hesitated at first, but then he consented and said, all right. We kept talking about my kids and island life, and although we could have spoken for hours, I chose to depart so as not to interfere with his work. Well, I should be heading out already. How unfortunate. At the party tomorrow, we'll have plenty of time to catch up. Allow me to also acquaint you with my family. That is accurate. I'm excited about it. I said Kevin farewell and opened the door, almost running into a woman who was hurriedly walking down the hallway in her loudly clicking high heels. Ah! She cried out before abruptly stopping. The girl who had been yelling earlier in the entrance was Emily, the president's daughter. Observe it. That was risky. I apologize. Are you okay? I asked quickly, and Emily appeared to know who I was. You? How come you're here? How could you enter our business without authorization? Well, you see. Kevin heard the commotion and hurriedly out from his office to introduce Emily to me. This is a friend of mine, Miss Emily. We were supposed to get together at work today. However, isn't it odd to have an outsider present during business hours? I'll let my dad know. Kevin's visage softened when he heard the words unrelated to the company, and he spoke gently in an attempt to reassure her. Miss Emily, this individual has ties to the organization. Actually, Thaw. I stopped Kevin before he could reveal who I was, telling him it was okay. I'm about to head out. I'm sorry, I said to the woman, hoping to avoid causing her any more difficulty while I was at work. I ran to the elevator so I could get out of there as soon as possible. I heard her yell, "Don't ever come back to our company again," from behind me. I entered the elevator discreetly, not even turning around. Emily disrupted what should have been a happy reunion with Kevin, and I departed feeling sad. I went to the anniversary party location with my family the following day. We had decided to go to my father's factory first and have lunch together because the party was in the evening. After a long absence, my kids were overjoyed to visit their grandparents once more. My dad has a modest factory in a central part of town. From the time I finished middle school until I was 35, I volunteered there. There were only 3 of us working at the factory at the time, including my father, and the business was shaky and greatly affected by the state of the economy. Despite this, my father encouraged me to finish high school. In light of this, I made the decision to assist in the workplace rather than seek higher education. As we entered the factory, my kids yelled, "Grandpa, we're here." My dad came out the back when he heard them talking. "Oh, you succeeded. It's been a long time, Dad. How are you doing? Ever since she learned that you were all arriving, your mother has been eager to prepare lunch. I'll head over to assist her." My wife and the children then made their way to the main residence. The phone at the workplace rang just as we were ready to head out to the party location after we had lunch together. It was a call from one of the factory's customers, informing us that they were running low on deliveries to another company as a result of an ordering error and asking if we could assist them. But it was Sunday, and no one was working in the plant. It was closed. We ought to endeavor to assist them. They seem to be having problems. But you can't do it by yourself, Dad. Stop worrying about it. Head over to the venue. The celebration kicks off at 4. Yes, being late would be impolite. Having come to the realization that my father was unable to manage the burden by himself, I made the decision to stay and assist him. I'd assured my wife and children that I would join them later and ordered them to head to the event. My father was hesitant at first, but as soon as he saw me putting on the work overalls that were hanging on a chair in the factory, he quietly got to work. We completed the work just after 4:00 p.m. Jack. Thank you, my father said as he hurried out to make the delivery. I will handle the delivery. I couldn't help but be really respectful of him and the way he treats everyone as I watched him go. The location was a renowned old hotel in the city. I hurried to the party's reception wearing my oil-stained overalls, forgetting to change out of them in my haste. When I showed up in my filthy work clothes, the receptionist looked at me curiously at first, then looked at me again and apologized profusely. I apologize. I apologize for being late. Has everyone entered the building already? Yes, the celebration began roughly half an hour ago. Kindly proceed. As I opened the door to enter after being escorted to the entryway, I saw Emily, the woman from earlier, standing there wearing a bright red, sequined mini dress that matched the color of the sports car I had seen. The same 2 male staff members were behind her. Emily yelled, "Who's this filthy man that looks like a cockroach?" As soon as she saw me, "Miss Emily, maybe you could speak a little quieter. Everyone is ogling us." The other workers in the room looked at us, obviously interested in what Emily was making such a fuss about. A few workers close to me began muttering, "Hey, isn't that? Could it be that Miss Emily is unaware of that person's identity? That is not possible. She should know, she's the president's daughter." The whispering went on, getting louder. "Hold on, aren't you the obnoxious dude I nearly ran into at work the other day? You've traveled a great distance in that squalid attire. What are you even wanting?" "Well, Kevin invited me." Kevin, once more. How in the world could he have invited someone as vile and repulsive as you? He's really worthless. Not only was I astonished that she called me dirty, but I was much more offended that she made fun of Kevin. Please refrain from disparaging Kevin. I'm to blame for showing up here in this attire. When Emily heard that from me, she gave off the impression that she was about to respond with a disappointed look for a moment. But then she turned to face me and grinned wickedly, saying, "That's right. You dirty bug, how dare you respond to me? But I could forgive you since I'm a compassionate person. I'll even make you my personal servant. You need to be appreciative." "Listen carefully, this is an order from me," Emily said, grinning. "Get tea for everyone at this place," she remarked, flinging a $1 coin at me in front of the staff members who were there. The workers surrounding us paled and began to whisper in horror at that time. Emily was the only one who stood there, laughing with her arms crossed. What's causing everyone's agitation? It's a really smart concept. I'm going to buy tea for everyone in this room. I knelt down, took out the $1 coin, and extended it toward Emily without saying anything. "What are you saying? Is this insufficient, or are you simply unwilling to purchase it?" As she said, she grabbed the $1 coin out of my palm. I was overcome with melancholy. Why was I subjected to this kind of treatment? Had I done something so awful that Emily was giving it to me? Just moments earlier, the party had been bustling. Suddenly, Emily's ridiculous antics had brought everything to disarray. In the midst of the chaos, I saw someone approaching us carefully. I knew this man well when I was a young boy, so I recognized him right away. It's been a long time, Jack, and he halted in front of me. Kyle. When he arrived, the room, which had been alive with whispers, became quiet. Only Emily persisted in her cacophonous tirade. "This stranger, who is he? Who the heck is he now? Jack, I heard you were coming today, so I decided to drop over too. It's wonderful to meet you." Kyle drew me into a soft embrace. I had been waiting so long to see Kyle that I was genuinely delighted. One of my father's industrial clients filed for bankruptcy when I was in elementary school because of a bounced payment. Kyle was employed by that failed company at the time. At the time, he was in his 20s and was sending money to his family back home. However, he was put in a difficult situation when the factory abruptly closed. My father saw Kyle's situation and extended an invitation for him to live and work at our plant. Despite the difficult circumstances facing our plant as well, my father chose to recruit Kyle because he could not stand to watch him suffer. Every day, Kyle gave his all at work. My father used to frequently comment, "Kyle is quick to learn and has a natural talent," which I can still clearly recall. I regarded Kyle as though he were my actual elder brother. He responded by treating me like a younger brother and frequently remarking that I made him think of his own sibling back home. After a few years, Kyle's abilities were acknowledged, and a big corporation made him an offer to join. At first, Kyle politely declined the offer, but my father urged him to seize the chance. "Kyle, you're meant to conduct a worthwhile job that benefits people." My father informed him, "You'll get more experience out there than you would staying here." I sobbed, begging Kyle not to go the morning he departed. Kyle gave me a hug and said, "I'll come back when I've made it," after noticing that I was crying. Pulled on for me. I had faith in his promise up to that point. My father owned a factory, where I worked hard after graduating from middle school. I believed that if I put in the effort, I could surpass Kyle's level of expertise and gain a closer relationship with him. After some time, the factory attained stability. One day, when I was going to be 35, a man showed up at the plant. With a quick recognition, my father said, "Kyle, is that you really? It's been a while." I heard him say, "Mr. Nelson," and I hurried out the rear. He gave me a nice smile upon seeing me. "Jack, it's been a long time." "I've missed you, Kyle." His smile was familiar and reassuring, just like I recalled. Kyle was overjoyed when my father invited him to join us for supper. We all sat down at the same table for the first time in years while he shared memories of my mother's food. Kyle questioned me, "Jack, are you married yet?" After supper. "No, I'm not there yet, but I'm seeing someone." "Well, how about we go there, shall we?" "Explain what you mean." With his knees crossed in front of him, Kyle sat down in front of us and declared, "I want you to take over my company, Jack." "What?" "I want you to head every single one of my 50 group companies as chairman." "How come?" "Chairman of 50 businesses." As I listened, I found out that Kyle wanted me to take over all 50 of the firms he was now the chairman of. Not at all. Such a big duty is beyond me. "I trust you, so I want you to do it." Kyle persisted no matter how many times I told him it was not feasible. After first being astonished, even my parents came around to Kyle's proposal and helped him persuade me. Their tenacity overwhelmed me, and I found myself responding, "All right, I'll give it a try." I then started my business management studies at a faster pace. In order to get a thorough understanding of the business, I also went incognito to every group company in the nation. I reasoned that by keeping my name as the chairman a secret, I might be able to learn more about the company's true nature. I also moved my family to a distant island during this time and got married to my present wife. One of the group enterprises where I had received training was a small seaweed processing factory located on that island. It was at that time that I fell in love with the island. The factory brought back memories of my father's workplace by emphasizing the value of interpersonal relationships. I had only just revealed to the press that I was the chairman at this time. Emily, meantime, yawned in boredom as she observed our reunion. The staff finally started muttering among themselves as they became to understand who we were. "That's the current chairman and the former chairman, right?" Emily asked her assistant, "What do they mean by the current and former chairman?" Because it seemed that she had heard this but wasn't exactly sure what it meant. Apparently those two are our company's current and past chairman, something I didn't know until recently. How come? Why was I never informed? And why didn't you respond earlier? When Emily realized I was the chairman now, she freaked out and started berating the staff for not telling her sooner. "Miss Emily, we have been traveling overseas with you for years, and we have recently returned. We were also unaware of the identity of the current chairman." With almost tears in her eyes, one of the staff members yelled and fled the room. When the other staff members saw this, they silently did the same. It was evident that they had reached their breaking point, and I felt sorry for them. Following their departure, Emily found herself standing by herself in front of a large group of workers who were observing her from a distance. They left so swiftly. This is uninteresting. I might as well head out as well. At that moment, Mr. Harrison, Emily's father, entered through the open door. "Oh, Dad, after the party started, weren't you sleeping in your room?" Mr. Harrison concluded his salutation. It appeared that he briefly rested in a room. The vacant staff members surrounding me mentioned that he appeared unwell and had been preoccupied with back-to-back workdays. I had never seen Mr. Harrison before, but I could tell right away that he didn't look well. After receiving a report about the disturbance from his secretary, he quickly returned to the location, obliging Emily's look of surprise. Mr. Harrison stepped past her, came over to me, and then he fell on one knee, bowed his head deeply in regret. "Mr. Nelson, I truly regret my daughter's actions." Emily was uncomfortable when she saw her father bowing to me in front of all the staff members and yelled, "Dad, what are you doing in front of everyone? Wake up already." Mr. Harrison, still on his knees, lifted his head, stared at Emily, and yelled back, "You apologize too. Are you even aware of this man's identity?" In spite of her father's remarks, Emily didn't seem worried. "Whom? Although I don't know him well, he seems to be our company's chairman. You do realize that's nothing to do with me." When Mr. Harrison heard this, he started to shake with anger. "You are such a fool, Emily. Seeing how naive my own daughter has grown hurts me." The workers in the room were glued to the drama unfolding between the president and his daughter, determined not to miss a word. Then, turning back to face me and lowering his head once again, Mr. Harrison said, "Mr. Nelson, I sincerely apologize. It is all my fault that my daughter has turned out this way. I accept full responsibility as her parent and plan to step down as president right away." His announcement of his resignation shocked everyone in the room. "Mr. Harrison, could you just look up? It is not necessary to bow in this manner." Regardless of the parent-child dynamic, I couldn't help but feel that it wasn't appropriate for a parent to apologize to their adult daughter for something she had done. That's why I attempted to interrupt him mid-apology. Mr. Harrison, though, would not budge. "No, I have ignored my daughter's transgressions for far too long. It's been said that the more you adore a child, the more bothersome they are. But I've allowed her to become into someone who despises other people and lacks common decency by giving her money and letting her do as she liked. I am alone accountable for this." His speech carried a strong sense of commitment, as though he had accepted his choice. "From now on, I will resign as president." Moreover, he turned to face Emily at that point and said something startling. "I will disown my daughter." "What? Reject?" Emily was astounded by his declaration, as were I and the other guests. As an adult lady over 30 years old, you still lack knowledge about the outside world. You haven't learned how to engage with people. You have lived a selfish life. You'll be on your own from now on, having to learn the actual world's realities from the beginning. "Not at all. I vehemently object. I'm not leaving the house, no matter what you say. If you can, please try making me." Emily refused to back down and continued to act defiantly, even toward her own father. Right then, whoosh, the front door flew open. Wait a minute. Everybody turned to face the voice's origin. Emily's attendants, who had departed earlier, were now making their way back. With regard to Miss Emily's transgressions, we have something to confess. It concerns the crimes that Miss Emily attempted to perpetrate. What do you think you're doing coming back now? The attendant's revelations caused the room, which had been hushed seconds before, to buzz with newfound interest. Miss Emily attempted to obtain private company information without authorization. She intended to sell it to a competitor business. What? Hearing this startling admission from Emily's attendants, Mr. Harrison became pale and appeared extremely concerned. Of course, it's impossible due to security measures, but when she realized she couldn't do that, she told us to find a way to withdraw money from the company instead. The employee's dissatisfaction with Emily boiled out after hearing the attendant's confessions. What does she perceive this business to be? We've put a lot of effort into this company, and yet she's been allowed to do whatever she wants because she's the boss's daughter. Never again reveal your face here." Mr. Harrison stayed down on the floor, his head dropped low in desperation, while the irate yells of the workers filled the space. Upon witnessing Mr. Harrison in this condition, I couldn't help but feel intense compassion for him. To have his much-loved daughter betray him in this way. Emily, meantime, listened to the employee's charges without displaying any regret, shaking her light impatiently and even clicking her tongue now and then in annoyance. Mr. Harrison eventually got up and requested, "Can someone please call security?" while continuing to look down sadly. Upon the arrival of the security guards that the staff had called, Mr. Harrison pointed directly at Emily and demanded something. "Please escort this woman out of here." "What? Someone has broken in here. Take her off the property right now." "Papa, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy now? You are the one who has gone insane. You've become a stranger to me. We are no longer father and daughter. Leave now." Emily was pulled from the arena by the security personnel when they seized her by the arms. Emily could not stop screaming aloud as she was being taken out. "This can't be happening. Papa. Hey, give me up. Are you aware of who I am?" I then learned that the police had to be called when Emily attempted to force her way back into the hotel after being escorted out by the security officers. "I'm the president's daughter." She cried out even after the police showed up. "Keep your hands off of me. Now let me back in." Following Emily's departure from the venue, Mr. Harrison bowed to all in attendance and declared his intention to step down. I stopped him before he could try to leave the room and talked him out of his resignation and into giving it another go for the good of the firm. I'd advised him to put his attention going forward on what he could do to support the staff if he genuinely felt regret for what had occurred. However, Mr. Harrison objected, stating, "I'm not qualified for that." That's when Kevin said something. "You've come to my aid numerous times. Throughout the years I've worked with you, I've observed your consideration for the business and its personnel. I think that's how everyone feels here." Each employee gave a nod of assent. "No, but even so, Mr. Harrison, I'm still young and inexperienced. But I'd like to share something with you," Mr. Harrison said, tears welling up in his eyes as he responded to Kevin's remarks. "I was once given advice by a mentor that has helped me ever since." Then I said what had meant so much to me. People cannot grow if they are unaware of failure. I think you can always start over and learn from your mistakes, no matter how old you are. For the benefit of the staff, I thus ask that you keep up your hard work. Mr. Harrison was approached by Kyle, who had been silently listening, who remarked, "Mr. Harrison, you worked hard and built this firm from the ground up. It's possible that you raised your daughter incorrectly, but as Jack mentioned before, growth is impossible for those who are unaware of failure. Kindly remember that and keep moving forward. Everyone, I apologize. I truly apologize." President Harrison was unable to continue speaking after that and started crying. I wrapped my arm around his shoulder and comforted him. The staff were affected by the spectacle and continued to cheer for a considerable amount of time after that. It is true that Emily's parents disowned her and forced her to leave the home. Her former attendants sued her as well, claiming they had been mistreated both mentally and physically. She was made to pay a sizable portion of the awarded damages. She soon found herself working on a fishing boat owned by one of Kyle's buddies, helping with cleaning and supporting the fishermen, after being unable to find job and requiring money to pay for the damages. Emily used to try to get away a lot, so the fishermen watched her carefully. Emily didn't resemble her previous glamorous self at all, according to a mutual acquaintance who had seen her recently. She was sunburned, had messy hair, little makeup, and appeared to have aged considerably. Nevertheless, if she puts in a lot of effort there, she may eventually improve greatly from who she was previously. I'm clinging to that sliver of optimism. As it happened, my family wasn't there in the party hall for the entire incident. The three of them had been sleeping in a waiting room as my youngest kid dozed off. That was a relief to hear, because I didn't want my kids to see anything like that. We walked out of the motel, and it was getting dark. Kyle was waiting for us as we were about to leave for home. Jack, today it must have been tough for you. Kyle, thank you. You also had a difficult time. Do you intend to return to the island? Yeah, life there suits us better. Both me and my family. My family gave me warm smiles and nodded in response when I looked at them. As I work on the island, I'll continue to study business, and I'll visit the enterprises as needed. My family may miss me when I'm gone, and the company may find it inconvenient, but Dad, because you're working hard, we'll work hard too. Me too. I enjoy watching you work so hard, even though there are moments when I miss you. Oh, how romantic. My family's support impacted me so much that I had to look up to keep from crying. I'm happy I gave you everything. I've always been somebody who loves to make things, not so much of a businessman. Jack, I was thinking about you right away when I was having trouble deciding what to do with the companies. Are you serious? Why you selected me has always baffled me. I take it that you watched your father grow up. You've developed into someone who is exactly like him, kind, considerate, and mature. The things Kyle said struck a deep chord with me. The knowledge that he felt that way about me moved me. You never give up on individuals who are weak, which is a sign of strength in you. I knew I could trust you with everything because of this. Yeah, Dad's the best and the strongest. Indeed, the greatest of the best. Please, I'm embarrassed. Come on. I had a fresh appreciation for everyone in my immediate vicinity. My parents, my family, Kyle, and Kevin are the reason I've been able to be true to myself all these years. Dad, let's go back to the island soon. Yes, let's head back soon to the place where I truly belong.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, We had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.